Morning sunlight sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the glass and steel tower, painting sharp patterns across the polished marble of the executive floor. In the heart of the city, at the very top, was the private domain of Maxwell Hart, the man whose name was synonymous with vision, power, and relentless ambition. As the automatic doors slid open to his corner office, Maxwell's mind was already sifting through numbers, markets, faces, deals yet to be made. His assistant, Nora, intercepted him just outside his door. She kept her voice low, urgency barely contained. "Mr. Hart, your 8 o'clock call with Tokyo is ready, and—" Maxwell gave a perfunctory nod. "Send them the latest numbers. I'll join in 5. "Yes, sir," Nora said, her tone tight. She hesitated. "There's one more thing." He didn't slow down. "What is it?" She hesitated again, eyes darting to the massive oak door of his office. I have a visitor." Maxwell's stride faltered for half a heartbeat, annoyance pricking his composure. He had made it clear, no unscheduled visitors. "Who?" But Nora just pressed her lips together, her answer lost in the shrill ring of his phone. Maxwell swept past her and pushed open the office door, ready to order whoever it was out. He expected a desperate entrepreneur, a media vulture, perhaps an overeager analyst. Instead, a little girl, no more than 7, sat perched in his chair, legs dangling far above the floor. The chair, his chair, the seat from which he'd orchestrated half a dozen corporate conquests, spun in a slow circle. The girl's hair was a wild halo of dark curls, her knees scraped and smudged, her hands clutching a battered stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. Maxwell blinked, momentarily disarmed. The phone slipped from his hand onto the desk, landing with a soft thud. She stopped spinning and fixed him with the steady, impossible seriousness only children possess. "Are you Maxwell Hart?" He straightened, regaining his icy composure. "I am. And you are?" She swung her legs, considering him as if weighing an investment. Then, without the faintest hint of doubt, she declared, "I'm your daughter." For a moment, the world outside, the conference calls, the stock tickers, the distant hum of the city, fell away, leaving only the silence stretching between them. Maxwell's eyes narrowed, searching for some sign of a joke, a hidden camera, a trap. "Excuse me," he said, voice edged with the authority that made grown men tremble. But the girl didn't flinch. "My name is Emily. My mom says you're my daddy." She looked around the vast, pristine office with wonder. "This is a really big chair. Do you like being the boss?" Maxwell remained rooted at the threshold, every muscle rigid, every instinct screaming for order. This was not possible. This was not on the agenda. He drew a breath, searching for the logic, the opening, the way to seize control. Nora hovered nervously in the doorway. She got past security. No one saw. But Maxwell lifted a hand to silence her, eyes never leaving the girl. Emily smiled, a small, hopeful thing, as if she were waiting for him to recognize her, as if she expected him to be glad. She hugged the rabbit tighter. "I had to see you. Mommy said you'd be busy, but I needed to tell you something important." The walls of Maxwell's composure trembled. He forced his voice to steel. "Who brought you here?" Emily shook her head. "I came myself. I rode the subway. It was scary, but I remembered what Mommy said. Always look for the tallest building. That's where you'd be." Maxwell glanced at Nora, whose face had gone pale. "Call security," he said quietly. Emily's eyes widened. "Please don't be mad. I only wanted to see you. Mommy's sick. She told me if anything happened, I should find you." Her voice quivered at the edges, but her gaze was unyielding. "She said you'd know what to do." Maxwell's jaw clenched. This was madness. Some elaborate extortion, surely, another play for money or influence. But there was something in the way the girl held herself, the way her eyes searched his face for answers. He tried to summon anger, but confusion gnawed at his certainty. "Who is your mother?" he demanded, his words clipped. Emily looked down, twisting her rabbit's ear. Her name's Claire. Claire Dawson. She said you'd remember her. The name crashed through him, tearing a rift in the carefully ordered narrative of his life. Claire. Memories surged unbidden, a smile glimpsed across a crowded cafe, laughter tangled with regret, a promise he'd never intended to keep. His voice was a whisper now, all the power stripped away. That's impossible. But Emily just stared up at him, hope and fear warring in her eyes. Please. Will you help her? A storm of questions battered Maxwell's mind, but there was no time to answer any of them. Outside, the building's fire alarm blared, sudden and shrill, and the office filled with the red flash of warning lights. Maxwell turned, but Emily grabbed his hand, her small fingers shockingly strong. Don't leave me, she begged, her eyes wide with fear. As the alarms wailed and chaos erupted in the hallways beyond, Maxwell Hart, the man who controlled everything, stood trapped between the world he knew and the one that had just invaded his life. And as smoke began to seep under the office door, the little girl's words echoed in the darkness. You're my daddy. Please don't leave. The acrid scent of smoke curled beneath the heavy oak door, instantly snapping Maxwell from his daze. The shriek of alarms mingled with the distant thunder of feet pounding the stairwells. Lights on the ceiling strobed red, throwing frantic shadows across the walls lined with awards, photos, and gold-lettered business plans. Emily clung to Maxwell's hand with a child's unyielding grip. Her wide eyes shone with terror, but she pressed her lips together, fighting back tears. The battered rabbit trembled in her arm. Stay close, Maxwell ordered, his voice cutting through the panic in his head. He strode toward the door, dragging Emily behind him. Nora hovered in the corridor, her phone to her ear, shouting instructions to security and emergency services. Sir, the elevators are locked down, she cried. We need to use the stairs. I know, Maxwell snapped, though his gaze lingered on Emily. Stay with me. He squeezed her hand, startling himself with the gesture. He'd never comforted a child in his life. Together they plunged into the chaos of the hallway. Executives and assistants streamed past, faces contorted with fear. Smoke thickened, making the air taste of ash. Somewhere below, the fire raged, its true size hidden, its threat unknown. The emergency stairwell was a bottleneck of bodies. Maxwell pulled Emily to his side, shielding her from the panicked crowd. He barked, "Out of the way!" And for a moment, the mob parted for the man in the tailored suit with a wild-eyed little girl at his side. They reached the first landing. Emily coughed, her tiny shoulders shaking. Maxwell knelt beside her, his heart hammering, his mind racing in a dozen directions at once. "Are you hurt?" he asked, struggling to keep the tremor from his voice. Emily shook her head, wiping smoke from her eyes. "I'm okay. I'm not scared of fire. Just loud noises." A flicker of something, pride, ignited in Maxwell. She was braver than some men he knew. A security guard thundered up the steps, face glistening with sweat. "Mr. Hart, we have the lower floors cleared, but the fire's near the third level. Stairwell B is blocked." "This way, sir." Maxwell scooped Emily into his arms, her arms winding around his neck instinctively. Her rabbit dangled between them. They wove through smoke-choked corridors and down more stairs. Each turn revealed new obstacles, a wall of heat, a collapsed ceiling, frightened workers pressing handkerchiefs to their mouths. In the midst of the confusion, Emily pressed her lips to Maxwell's ear and whispered, "I really am your daughter, you know. Mommy showed me pictures. She said you have a kind smile, even if you hide it." Maxwell's heart stuttered. His mind raced with questions. About Claire, about this impossible child, about the way his entire life had been split into before and after with 6 innocent words. I don't know what your mother told you," he managed, voice rough. "But you must never do something so dangerous again. Never come here alone." She nodded solemnly. "I promise. But I had to. Mommy, she's sick, really sick. She said you'd know what to do. She told me you always keep your promises." A surge of guilt cut through Maxwell, sharper than the smoke in his lungs. A fresh wave of heat pushed them back as another fire door burst open below. Maxwell made a decision. He darted sideways into a maintenance corridor, boots pounding on the gritty concrete, Emily's head pressed against his shoulder. They emerged onto a quiet landing, far from the crowds. Maxwell eased Emily to the floor, fighting for breath. From the other side of the stairwell door, voices echoed. "I saw them, down here." Two men in suits, faces unfamiliar, emerged from the shadows. Maxwell tensed. Something in their stance, in their too calm eyes, sent alarm bells ringing. Security, or something else. One man stepped forward, hands raised. "Mr. Hart, it's not safe. Please, let us take the girl." Emily shrank behind Maxwell, her hand slipping into his. He squared his shoulders, eyes cold. "No one touches her." "Who sent you?" The men hesitated, then the taller one smiled. "Mr. Hart, we work for the building's crisis management. Let us." But Maxwell's instincts, honed in boardrooms and backrooms, flared with warning. He pulled Emily back, never breaking eye contact. "We'll find our own way out," he said, voice steel. A tense beat, then the men faded back into the smoke, muttering into their radios. Emily's fingers tightened. "They scared me," she whispered. "They didn't look nice." Maxwell knelt, wiping soot from her cheek. "You stick with me, understand? No matter what." She nodded fiercely, tears carving streaks through the dirt. Below, the flames crackled, growing louder. The air shimmered with heat. Maxwell grabbed Emily's hand and plunged deeper into the stairwell. Each step down felt like descending into another life, a life with questions he could no longer ignore. Finally, they burst out onto a rooftop terrace just as fire engines screeched to a stop below. The city skyline glared bright and unreal beyond the smoke. Maxwell wrapped his jacket around Emily's shoulders. She shivered, but she never let go of his hand. Above the sirens and the shouts, a single truth echoed in Maxwell's mind. Everything he thought unshakable was gone. The world had changed in the space of a morning. He pulled Emily close, and as they stared down at the chaos below, a voice from behind shattered the fragile calm. "Mr. Hart, you need to come with us. Now." Maxwell spun around, shielding Emily once more, only to find himself staring down the barrel of a gun. Maxwell's blood ran cold. The man holding the gun wore a black windbreaker, his face set in a mask of impatient professionalism. A second figure, shorter, heavier, also armed, moved to block the only exit from the rooftop. "Keep your hands where we can see them, Mr. Hart," the leader barked. "And the girl, too. This doesn't have to get messy." Emily whimpered, shrinking against Maxwell's side. The stuffed rabbit dangled from her fist, its fur as gray as the swirling smoke. Maxwell raised his hands slowly, careful to keep himself between Emily and the men. "She's just a child," he said, forcing a calm he didn't feel. "Whatever you want, take it. Let her go." The gunman sneered. "It's not about what we want, Mr. Hart. Orders are orders. Step away from the girl." Below, the wail of sirens and shouted commands echoed off the glass towers, a distant storm compared to the immediate threat of the gun. Maxwell's mind raced, grasping for an escape route, a negotiation, a chance. Emily clutched his sleeve, her voice trembling. "Please, don't let them take me. Please." Maxwell bent low, his voice gentle. "Emily, look at me." She did, wide-eyed and trusting, even now. "No matter what happens, don't be afraid. I won't let anything happen to you. Understand?" She nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. The second man advanced, gun raised. "Enough. Move aside." Maxwell took a step back, forcing a brittle smile. "You realize who I am? You lay a hand on me, the world will come down on you. You'll be hunted." But the leader just laughed, cold and sharp. "We're not worried about your lawyers, Mr. Hart. We're worried about your mouth." He turned his gun on Emily. "Last warning." Maxwell's heart pounded so loudly he could hardly hear the sirens anymore. He could not would not let them take her. He cast a desperate glance around the rooftop, shimmering heat, shattered glass, nowhere to hide. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the chaos, a woman's voice, hoarse but determined, yelling from the fire escape. Let them go. You don't have to do this. All eyes whipped toward the noise. A woman stumbled onto the terrace, smoke-stained and wild-eyed. Maxwell's breath caught. He recognized her instantly, even through the grime and panic. Claire. Her hair was matted to her forehead, and her blouse was torn, but her gaze blazed with desperation. Leave them alone, she cried, stumbling toward the gunman. The leader swore, swinging his weapon toward her. Stay back. But Claire didn't slow. She's just a child. You want money. Take it. But don't hurt her, please. In the confusion, Maxwell seized his moment. He snatched a fire extinguisher from the ground, ripped the pin, and hurled it at the nearer gunman. The heavy canister struck him in the arm, sending his weapon skittering across the concrete. Claire lunged, slamming her shoulder into the leader's back. He spun around, but Maxwell was already moving, grabbing Emily and shoving her behind a vent. Shots rang out, deafening, chipping concrete from the rooftop edge. Maxwell pressed himself over Emily, shielding her with his body. Claire scrambled to the fallen gun, her hands trembling, but the second man recovered first. He kicked the weapon away and caught her arm, twisting hard. Emily shrieked, but Maxwell couldn't move. Any sudden motion would make them a target. He risked a glance upward. The first gunman was staggering, clutching his bruised arm, but he still had his weapon. He aimed it at Claire, then at Maxwell, breath heaving with rage. Enough! The gunman screamed. This ends now. Suddenly, a helicopter roared overhead, its downdraft flattening everyone to the rooftop. Police snipers leaned out the open door, rifles aimed. Over a bullhorn, a voice thundered. Drop your weapons. You are surrounded. Hands on your head. The gunman froze. The leader's hand shook, sweat pouring down his brow. Claire met Maxwell's eyes, fear, relief, and apology flickering all at once. In that split second, the rooftop hung in fragile balance. Emily clung to Maxwell, her tears lost in the thunder of the rotors. The gunman's finger tightened on the trigger. And then, a shot cracked from the helicopter above. The leader's gun flew from his hand, clattering across the concrete. Instantly, police stormed the rooftop, pinning both men to the ground. Maxwell wrapped his arms around Emily, holding her so tightly she squeaked in surprise. Claire limped toward them, sobbing, collapsing to her knees beside her daughter. Emily threw her arms around her mother's neck, both of them weeping with relief. Police swarmed them, barking orders, questions blurring in Maxwell's ears. But all he could do was stare at Claire, and the child clinging to her. His child. His world, overturned. As paramedics rushed to check Claire and Emily, a detective knelt beside Maxwell. Mr. Hart, you need to come with us. We have questions. You're not safe here. Maxwell looked from the detective to Claire, to Emily's tear-streaked face. What do you mean, not safe? He rasped. The detective's expression was grave. Someone wanted you dead. And they knew about her. Maxwell's world shrank to a pinpoint, the danger only just beginning. And as the helicopter lifted away, carrying the gunman into custody, one thought consumed him. Who had sent them, and how much did they know? A cold, white hospital room replaced the chaos of the rooftop. Overhead, fluorescent lights flickered, humming with the antiseptic stillness unique to places where fear and hope exist side by side. Maxwell paced the far corner, eyes locked on the bed where Claire sat upright, an oxygen mask pressed to her face, color slowly returning to her cheeks. Emily curled at her mother's side, one tiny hand tangled protectively in Claire's sleeve, the battered rabbit tucked beneath her chin. Police stood guard outside the door. The detective, a sharp-eyed woman named Perez, leaned against the window, her gaze never leaving Maxwell. Claire tried to speak, her voice a weak rasp. Emily, is she all right? She's safe, Maxwell replied, surprising himself with how fiercely the words came out. You're both safe. That's all that matters. Claire looked up at him, her eyes soft and searching. You always did know how to sound so certain, Max. He moved closer, lowering his voice. I need to know, Claire. Who would do this? Who knew about Emily? She shook her head, pain shadowing her features. I don't know. I kept her a secret, just like you wanted. No one was supposed to know. Only my mother. And she's been gone for years. Maxwell swallowed, guilt rising in his chest. In all his years of orchestrating secrets and negotiations, he had never imagined a secret this fragile, this precious, could become a weapon. Detective Perez cleared her throat, pulling a chair up to the foot of the bed. Mr. Hart. Ms. Dawson. What happened on that roof wasn't random. Someone orchestrated it, paid those men, gave them your schedules, knew exactly when you'd be exposed. Mr. Hart, you have enemies. Which of them knew you had a child? Maxwell shook his head, frustration mounting. No one. I've never spoken of her. I didn't even know until today. Claire reached out, brushing Emily's hair from her eyes. I never told anyone. I thought, maybe if you weren't involved, she'd be safer. Emily shifted, peering up at Maxwell. Are you really my daddy? She whispered, voice barely more than a breath. He knelt beside the bed, heart pounding. Yes, I am. The words tasted foreign, and yet, strangely right. Detective Perez pressed on. Ms. Dawson, was there anyone in your life recently? Anyone new, anyone who asked questions or seemed out of place? Claire hesitated, eyes flickering toward Emily. There was a man, weeks ago. Said he was from social services. He asked about Emily's father, about my job. He didn't have a badge, but he knew my name. He knew things about you, Max. Maxwell's jaw tightened. He turned to Perez. Find out who he is. Perez nodded. We're checking building cameras and street surveillance. But you need to understand, Mr. Hart, someone with serious resources wanted you dead, and they wanted that little girl. We need to move you somewhere safe. Emily pressed her face into her mother's side, voice muffled. Are we going to jail? Claire stroked her hair, soothing. No, honey. We're just going somewhere, quiet, for a little while. With nice people to watch over us. Maxwell stood, hands shaking with adrenaline. He wasn't used to being outmaneuvered, never in his empire, never in his life. The idea that his own daughter, flesh of his flesh, could become a target in someone's game left him reeling. Claire caught his hand, squeezing hard. I'm sorry, Max. I tried to protect her. I really did. He met her gaze, and for the first time in years, let the vulnerability show. I should have been there. For both of you. Outside, the hallway echoed with heavy footsteps. Detective Perez stepped out to confer with the officers. Claire's eyes lingered on Maxwell, searching for something she hadn't dared hope for since the day she walked out of his life. Emily whispered, Are you going to stay with us now? Maxwell hesitated, emotion thickening his throat. He knelt and gathered her into his arms. I'm not leaving you again. Not ever. Claire watched them, tears tracing silent tracks down her cheeks. Perez returned, eyes grave. We have to move. Now. There's activity on the lower floors, someone's trying to access the hospital records. We can't risk another attack. Maxwell stood, his resolve hardening. Where do we go? Perez gestured to the back exit. We have a secure car waiting. Keep your heads down. No one speaks to anyone. Claire gathered Emily close, and Maxwell wrapped his arm around them both. Together, they slipped through the shadowy corridors, guided by silent police. Outside, the night pressed in, cold and thick with threat. The car's engine purred, headlights slicing through the darkness. As the doors locked behind them and the city fell away, Maxwell stared at his daughter, his world, and swore to himself he would find whoever had threatened them, no matter the cost. But as the car sped through the rain-slicked streets, a black SUV turned from a side alley and began to follow, headlights off, a silent predator in the night. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and rain as the unmarked police car sped through empty streets. Inside, the world narrowed to tense silence. Emily dozed fitfully in Claire's arms, her breath fogging the window. Maxwell sat on the far side, watching the rearview mirror with predator's eyes. Detective Perez rode up front, murmuring directions to the driver, her hand never far from her holster. Streetlights flashed over the windshield in quick succession, but Maxwell's gaze was fixed on the black SUV behind them. It kept its distance, shadowing their every turn with unnerving precision. Maxwell's hands curled into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to fight, to take control, but in this moment, all he could do was trust strangers with the lives of the only family he had left. Claire glanced at him, her voice raw. "Is it them?" Maxwell nodded, keeping his tone low so Emily wouldn't wake. "Don't look back. They want us scared." Detective Perez caught his eye in the mirror. "We're almost to the safe house. Stay calm. If anything happens, keep Emily down and stay behind me." Claire nodded, her grip tightening protectively around her daughter. Emily shifted, eyes fluttering open. "Where are we going?" Maxwell tried for a reassuring smile. "Somewhere safe, sweetheart. Somewhere no one can hurt you." The SUV crept closer, headlights flickering in the mist. Maxwell watched as it surged forward, pulling into the next lane. The police driver accelerated, weaving through traffic. Suddenly, the SUV's window rolled down, glinting metal catching the light. "Get down!" Perez barked. Tires screeched. The first bullet punched through the rear windshield, sending glass shards spraying through the car. Maxwell threw himself over Claire and Emily as the driver swerved hard. Another shot cracked the side mirror. Emily sobbed, clutching her rabbit to her chest. The police driver jerked the wheel, sending their car hurtling down a narrow alley. The SUV thundered after, engine snarling. Garbage cans exploded in their wake, alarms bleating from every direction. Maxwell's mind raced. He yanked off his jacket and pressed it against the back window, shielding Claire and Emily from the flying glass. Perez shouted into her radio, "Unit Bravo, we're under fire. Safe house route compromised, need immediate backup on 14th and Division." The alley spat them onto a deserted street, their tires fishtailing across slick pavement. Up ahead, a set of barricades loomed, orange barrels left from city construction. The driver aimed for the gap, engine screaming. The SUV roared up beside them, men leaning out with guns drawn. Maxwell caught a glimpse of masked faces, cold and efficient. Not hired thugs, professionals. "Hold on!" the driver yelled. He slammed the brakes, swinging the car around in a desperate spin. The SUV overshot, barreling through the barricades and crashing into a parked truck. Sirens wailed as a second police car appeared at the end of the block, blue lights painting the rain. Perez kicked open her door, weapon raised. "Move. Now." Maxwell scooped up Emily, her body shaking in terror, and hustled Claire out of the back seat. They sprinted for the shelter of the second police car as bullets stitched the ground behind them. Perez returned fire, ducking behind a mailbox. "Go, go, go." Maxwell threw open the car door, shoving Claire and Emily inside. He scrambled in after them, slamming the lock just as the officer behind the wheel floored the gas. The car rocketed away, weaving through the maze of side streets, the echo of gunfire chasing them into the night. Emily wailed, clinging to her mother. "Why do they want us? What did we do?" Maxwell pressed his lips to her forehead. "Nothing, baby. Nothing at all. They're after me, not you. I won't let them touch you, I promise." Claire's face was pale, eyes huge with terror and fury. "Max, who are these people? What do they want from us?" He shook his head, helplessness burning in his chest. "I don't know. But they're organized, and they're not stopping. Someone powerful wants us gone." Perez slid into the car, breathless. "We've lost them, for now. Safe house is 10 minutes. Don't talk to anyone. Don't open the door for anyone but me." She turned in her seat, voice gentler now. Emily, you were so brave back there. It's almost over. I promise. Emily wiped her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. Can I go home now? Maxwell answered before anyone else could. Soon. I promise. As soon as it's safe. The car sped through a final maze of quiet neighborhoods, headlights off, siren silent. At last, they pulled into an underground garage beneath an old apartment building. Armed officers waited, faces grim. The doors opened, and Perez hustled them into a private elevator. Every floor they passed, Maxwell's tension rose. What if nowhere was safe? Finally, the elevator chimed. The doors slid open onto a small, furnished apartment, windows covered, walls bare, stocked with food and first aid kits. A place designed for hiding, not for living. Perez handed Maxwell a burner phone. No calls, no internet, nothing in or out. We'll be posted outside. If you need anything, call this number. We'll find out who did this. But for now, you're on lockdown. She paused, her voice low and urgent. You need to tell me, Mr. Hart. Is there anything you haven't told us? Anyone from your past, any deal gone bad? Maxwell shook his head. I've made enemies, but nothing like this. No one knew about Emily. No one. Perez's eyes narrowed. People like you, powerful men, leave footprints. Someone is following yours. Don't underestimate them. She stepped out, leaving Maxwell, Claire, and Emily in the hush of the safe house. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the trauma of the night pressing in from every side. Claire finally spoke, her voice broken. Max. What if they never stop? Maxwell looked at her, at Emily, at the hope and terror written across both faces. Then I'll stop them, he vowed. I swear it, Claire. I'll find who did this, and I'll end it. Outside, rain battered the windows. And somewhere in the darkness, a phone began to ring, a call from a number Maxwell never thought he'd see again. The burner phone's shrill ring echoed in the claustrophobic hush of the safe house. Maxwell hesitated, staring at the number flashing on the screen, a familiar sequence he hadn't seen in more than a decade. Claire looked at him, fear and hope warring in her eyes. Emily pressed close to her mother, watching Maxwell with solemn trust. He accepted the call, voice barely more than a growl. Who is this? A pause, then a voice he recognized, smooth as silk, cold as winter. Maxwell. Still alive, I see. For a man as careful as you do let your guard down. Maxwell's grip tightened. What do you want? A low chuckle. Don't be dense, old friend. You've been hiding something, someone. Did you really think your past would stay buried forever? That little girl, she's a problem. For both of us. Maxwell's mind raced, replaying every business deal, every enemy made and ally discarded. If you touch her. The voice cut him off, venomous. Don't waste threats. I just want what's mine. I'll call again at midnight. If you don't pick up, well, there are only so many places to hide in this city. You have one chance, Maxwell. Make it count. The line went dead. Maxwell stared at the phone, every nerve alive with dread. Claire broke the silence, her voice shaking. Who was it? Maxwell closed his eyes, old memories slamming into him. Deals forged in shadow, a betrayal that had ended a partnership and set off a cold war in the city's underworld. The man on the phone, Victor Hale, was once his closest confidant. Now he was the only man with enough power and hate to pull these strings. It's Victor, Maxwell said. He knows about Emily. He wants leverage, revenge. I'm not sure. Claire trembled, her voice pleading. You told me he was gone. Out of the country. I thought he was, Maxwell replied, guilt washing over him. I should have warned you. I should have. A knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. Maxwell moved instinctively, positioning himself between the women and the door. Who is it? He called. Detective Perez, came the reply. but Maxwell noticed a slight tremor, a difference in tone. He motioned Claire and Emily toward the bedroom, handing her the phone. "Don't open the door unless you're sure it's her. Lock this behind me." Claire nodded, shepherding Emily into the small room. Maxwell approached the peephole and checked the hallway. Perez stood alone, glancing over her shoulder. He unlocked the door, but only opened it a crack. "What is it?" Perez stepped inside quickly, closing the door behind her. Her eyes darted around the apartment. "We just picked up chatter. Someone's hacked the building's camera feeds. There could be a breach within the hour. We're moving you, now." Maxwell didn't hesitate. "Claire, Emily, get your things." Claire reappeared, clutching Emily and the stuffed rabbit. Emily's eyes were wide, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. Perez guided them to the back exit. 2 officers waited in the service hallway, guns drawn, nerves on edge. They moved quickly through service corridors and down a freight elevator. In the basement, another car waited, windows blacked out, engine rumbling quietly. Maxwell helped Emily into the back seat, climbing in beside her as Claire and Perez joined them. The car sped off, diving into the city's maze of alleys and underpasses. As they drove, Perez kept her gun drawn, her voice low. "Who's after you, Mr. Hart? You need to trust me. If you know something, anything, it could save your daughter's life." Maxwell met her gaze, every word heavy. "His name is Victor Hale. We were partners once. We built this city together. But he wanted more, and I cut him out. He disappeared after the last deal went south. I thought he'd vanished." Perez's jaw clenched. "He's back. And he's got friends. Some of my own people might be compromised. We need to move fast." Emily snuggled into Maxwell's side, her voice small. "Are we going to have to keep running forever?" He stroked her hair, fighting the tremor in his hand. "No, darling. I promise you. This ends tonight." Perez's phone buzzed. She checked it, her face going pale. "We have to switch cars. Someone's tracking our signal." The car screeched to a stop beneath an abandoned overpass. Another vehicle, a nondescript white van, idled in the shadows. The officers hustled Maxwell and his family into the van, covering the move with drawn guns and watchful eyes. Inside the van, Perez gave final instructions. "You'll be safe at the next location. We're calling in federal backup. But you need to disappear until we know Victor is off the board." Claire clung to Emily, her voice fierce. "We'll do whatever it takes." The van sped away, weaving through industrial lots and under silent streetlights. In the darkness, Maxwell wrapped his arms around Emily and Claire, a fortress against the world. Yet as they hurtled through the night, Maxwell's phone buzzed again, a single text from an unlisted number, midnight. "Come alone. Or you lose everything." He stared at the message, the weight of his past pressing down like the closing jaws of a trap. And as the clock neared midnight, Maxwell realized, the only way to protect his daughter might be to confront Victor himself, and gamble everything he had left. The city outside was silent, pressed beneath the hour of midnight. The van rolled to a stop in the shadows of an abandoned rail yard, empty tracks stretching into darkness. Rain spat against the windshield, tracing frantic rivers down the glass. Maxwell barely registered the chill. His eyes were fixed on the burner phone, the words from Victor burning into his thoughts. "Come alone. Or you lose everything." Inside the van, Claire and Emily huddled together, exhaustion and fear etched in every line of Claire's face. Detective Perez was on the phone, arguing quietly with a federal agent about reinforcements. The driver scanned the darkness with a flashlight, nerves frayed to the breaking point. Maxwell touched Claire's hand. She startled, then searched his face, reading the truth in his eyes. "You're going, aren't you?" she whispered. He nodded. "I have to. He won't stop. Not as long as he thinks he can use you or Emily against me." Claire's voice shook. "What if it's a trap?" "It is a trap," Maxwell said. But I won't let him near you again. This ends tonight. Emily, half awake, blinked up at him. Don't leave us, Daddy. He leaned close, brushing his thumb across her cheek. I'll always come back to you. Always. The words caught in his throat, truer than anything he'd ever promised. Detective Perez ended her call, gaze sharp. You're not going anywhere alone, Hart. We'll set up a perimeter. If you walk into Victor's hands, he wins. Maxwell's voice was iron. If I don't, he'll just keep coming. He wants me, not them. I have to end this. Perez shook her head. He could have 100 men waiting. Maxwell looked at her, then Claire, then down at his daughter, her hope shining through the terror. He turned to Perez, voice lower. Give me a wire. Let me walk in. If I can distract him, maybe you get the shot. If I don't go, he'll tear the city apart to find us. Perez studied him for a long moment, then nodded. We do it my way. No heroics. No second chances. Minutes later, Maxwell stood in the gloom beside the tracks, a wire hidden beneath his collar, Perez's words echoing in his earpiece. We're here. Eyes on you. If anything feels off, you give the word. He started down the tracks, shoes crunching on broken stone. Shadows shifted around him. The only light came from the skeletal windows of a derelict warehouse ahead. The phone buzzed in his pocket. He answered. Good. Victor's voice purred. You're learning. Walk inside. Alone. Maxwell entered the warehouse. The air was thick with dust and memory. Years ago, he and Victor had stood here together, drawing plans for towers that would scrape the sky. Now, only ghosts and danger lingered. Victor stepped from the shadows, flanked by two men in dark suits. His silver hair gleamed, eyes cold and hollow. Maxwell. You've aged. Maxwell squared his shoulders. Where's my daughter? Where's Claire? Victor's mouth twisted. Safe. For now. But everything has a price. He circled Maxwell, predatory. You took everything from me. My company, my name, my future. Did you think there'd never be consequences? Maxwell held his ground. Let them go. You want me? I'm right here. You want a war, I'll give it to you, but leave them out. Victor barked a hollow laugh. You always played the martyr. But you've never really lost, have you? Not until today. From the gloom, another figure appeared, a shadow with a gun pressed to Claire's back. Her face was bruised, her eyes hard with defiance. Emily followed, clutching her rabbit, silent tears running down her cheeks. Maxwell lunged forward, only to be yanked back by Victor's guards. Victor raised a hand. Easy, Max. We're all friends here. He turned to Perez's hidden microphone, eyes finding the lens. Call off your dogs, detective. I know you're listening. If anyone moves, if anyone so much as breathes wrong, you'll never see them alive again. Maxwell could hear Perez's voice, muffled and frantic, in his ear. Hold your position, Hart. We're working on a shot. Stall him. Maxwell forced himself to speak, swallowing rage and terror. What do you want, Victor? Victor stepped close, his face inches from Maxwell's. I want you to admit it. You ruined me. You destroyed my life. You stole everything, and you never looked back. Tell your daughter what you are. Tell her how you sacrificed me so you could be king. Maxwell met Claire's gaze, her eyes shining with pain, accusation, love. He looked at Emily, her small face crumpled with fear. Voice shaking, he spoke the truth he'd never dared utter. I was wrong, Victor. I let my ambition blind me. I hurt people I cared about. But I won't let you take my family from me. Victor's eyes flashed with a twisted satisfaction. Too little, too late. A sudden burst of light filled the warehouse, the flash of tactical lasers, the roar of police orders. Victor shoved Claire aside, gun raised, and chaos erupted. Maxwell dove for Emily as bullets tore the air, sirens blaring. Victor's men fell, shouts and screams echoing off metal beams. Victor grabbed Emily, hauling her toward a side exit. Maxwell surged to his feet, heart pounding, as Claire screamed, "Emily!" No. The warehouse filled with smoke and gunfire, Victor's threat ringing in Maxwell's ears. One move and she dies. And Maxwell realized, with icy certainty, that this final confrontation would be fought in the shadows, with everything he loved at stake. The air inside the warehouse thickened with gunpowder and panic. Police orders thundered through the haze. "Drop your weapons! Hands on your head!" Staccato bursts of gunfire ricocheted off rusted steel and shattered glass. Amid the chaos, Victor dragged Emily toward the far exit, his arm clamped around her shoulders, gun jammed hard against her ribs. Maxwell's world shrank to a tunnel. Emily's terrified eyes, Victor's white-knuckled grip, the high-pitched whimper of the stuffed rabbit dropping to the floor. He sprinted after them, dodging debris and struggling officers, rage and terror blinding him to everything but his daughter's tiny, shaking silhouette. "Don't follow, Hart," Victor roared over his shoulder. "One more step and you'll never see her again." Maxwell halted, breathing ragged, hands raised. "Victor, you don't have to do this. She's a child. Let her go, and you can walk out of here alive. It doesn't have to end like this." Victor's eyes glittered, desperate and wild. "No. It ends the way you ended me. With loss." He yanked Emily through a service door and disappeared into the night. A shot rang out. Maxwell ducked, feeling the heat of a bullet graze his cheek. Claire staggered toward him, clutching her side, blood blooming through her fingers. "Claire." Maxwell caught her as she faltered, lowering her gently to the cold concrete. "Stay with me. Claire, look at me." Perez and her team surged past, chasing Victor through the maze of shipping containers and derelict railcars beyond the warehouse. Claire's breath came in short, shallow gasps. She tried to smile, her lips trembling. "Find her, Max, promise me. Bring her home." Maxwell's vision blurred, fear clawing at his resolve. "I swear it, Claire. Nothing will stop me. I'm bringing Emily back." She squeezed his hand, her grip weak but determined. "She's so much like you, stubborn, brave. Tell her I love her, always." Paramedics rushed in, crowding around Claire, lifting her onto a stretcher. "We'll take care of her, sir. Go. Go get your little girl," one of them urged. Maxwell pushed to his feet, adrenaline burning away all weakness. He tore out of the warehouse, following the shouts and sirens, following the trail of Victor's madness. Outside, rain slashed the rail yard, washing blood and grime into black rivers. Maxwell spotted Perez crouched behind a battered freight car, gun raised, barking into her radio. "Suspect heading east, on foot, with the child. All units, intercept." Maxwell sprinted after her, heart hammering, lungs aflame. In the darkness ahead, he glimpsed Victor, half dragging, half carrying Emily through the tangled weeds and barbed wire. Emily struggled, twisting, her scream lost in the storm. "Let her go, Victor," Maxwell shouted, closing the distance, slipping and stumbling in the muck. Victor spun, gun aimed at Maxwell's head. His eyes were wild, rimmed with exhaustion and betrayal. "You ruined me. You destroyed everything. Why do you deserve her? Why do you get to walk away with a family, a legacy?" Maxwell forced himself to keep his voice steady, inching closer. "Because I'm willing to do anything for her. Because I'm willing to pay the price for my mistakes. You don't have to hurt her to hurt me. Please. Victor. She's innocent. This is between us." Victor's hand shook. For an instant, doubt flickered in his face. Emily twisted, sobbing. "Daddy, help me. Please." Maxwell dropped to his knees in the mud, arms spread, voice breaking. "Take me, Victor. Whatever you want. My life, my fortune, everything I own. Just let her go." For a heartbeat, Victor hesitated. Sirens wailed closer, the red and blue glare slicing through the night. Perez's voice crackled over the police radio. "Stand down, Victor. There's nowhere left to run. Release the girl." Victor's eyes darted between Maxwell and the approaching police, his grip on Emily slipping. He pressed the gun harder to her side, tears streaming down his face. "I have nothing left, Max. Nothing. You took it all." Maxwell crawled closer, ignoring the mud, the pain, the years of regret that boiled between them. "You can end this. You can choose, Victor. You can walk away. Please. Don't do this to her. Don't do this to yourself." Emily sobbed, trembling in Victor's grasp. "I want my mommy. I want my daddy." The word daddy seemed to lance through Victor's rage. His breath came in sharp, uneven bursts. Police swept in from all sides, guns trained on the two men and the small, weeping child. For one terrible second, the world held its breath. Victor screamed, raw and broken, and shoved Emily toward Maxwell, raising the gun to his own head. "No!" Maxwell lunged, grabbing Victor's arm, wrestling him down into the muck as the gun fired wildly into the rain-filled sky. Officers tackled Victor, wrenching the weapon from his hand. Maxwell clutched Emily, who sobbed against his chest, her small body shaking with terror and relief. "It's over," Perez said, her voice trembling as she cuffed Victor. "It's finally over." Maxwell gathered Emily close, tears falling freely for the first time in decades. "I've got you, sweetheart. I'm here. You're safe." Somewhere behind them, ambulance sirens screamed and floodlights cut through the darkness. Claire's stretcher rolled past, paramedics shouting to keep her breathing, to hold on just a little longer. Maxwell buried his face in Emily's hair, promising her, promising himself, that he would never let go again. But as the rail yard filled with blue lights and the nightmare faded, one question remained, sharp as broken glass in Maxwell's heart. Would Claire survive long enough to see the family reunited? The world shrank to the inside of an ambulance, a box of rushing lights and desperate prayers. Maxwell knelt by Claire's side as paramedics worked over her, their hands swift and sure, pressing gauze to her wound, threading 4 lines, speaking in clipped, urgent tones. Claire's eyes fluttered, her skin pale against the white sheets. Emily clung to Maxwell's waist, silent now, the shock written in her trembling fingers as she watched her mother fade in and out of consciousness. "It's going to be okay," Maxwell whispered, pressing Claire's cold hand between both of his. "Stay with me, Claire. Stay for her. Stay for us." Claire's gaze locked onto his, a fragile smile pulling at her lips. "You found her," she breathed. "You kept your promise." Tears pricked Maxwell's eyes, guilt and hope warring in his chest. "I'll keep every promise from now on. Just hold on." The paramedic shot him a glance. "Sir, you need to let us work. We're almost there. She's lost a lot of blood, but we have a trauma team waiting." Maxwell nodded, but he couldn't release her hand. Emily leaned in, her voice trembling. "Mommy, don't go. Please, don't go." Claire's lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. "Emily, my sweet girl, I love you so much. Always remember that, even if I'm far away." Emily's tears spilled over, and Maxwell scooped her up, cradling her against his chest as the ambulance screamed through city streets, each red light a lifetime, every bump a jolt of dread. Through the back window, blue and red flashed against rain-streaked glass. Perez's squad car followed close, a silent guardian, while news helicopters circled above, their spotlights prowling for a glimpse of the story that had nearly shattered 3 lives. The hospital doors flew open. Claire was rushed away on the stretcher, nurses and doctors calling for scans, blood, a surgical suite. Maxwell and Emily followed, hearts pounding, shoes squeaking on gleaming tile. In the waiting room, Perez intercepted them, her hair soaked, her badge gleaming in the fluorescent glare. "She's in the best hands," Perez said quietly. "You both are safe now. Victor Hale is in custody. He'll never hurt you again." Maxwell nodded, but his attention was on Emily, whose eyes never left the swinging doors at the end of the corridor. He pulled her into his lap, wrapping her in his arms, both of them trembling with the aftershocks of terror and love. Hours passed in a blur of waiting, coffee gone cold, voices hushed in hallways. Detectives came and went, statements taken, forms signed. Maxwell answered every question, his mind elsewhere, on Claire's soft smile, the gentle squeeze of her hand, the future he'd nearly lost. Finally, a surgeon appeared, exhaustion etched into his face but relief softening his eyes. "She made it through surgery," the doctor said, and Maxwell's knees almost buckled with relief. "She lost a lot of blood, but she's strong. She'll need time, but she'll recover." Emily wept into Maxwell's shoulder, and he clung to her, whispering thanks he wasn't sure he believed. Perez stood nearby, arms folded, a rare smile ghosting her lips. "She's a fighter, your Claire," she said. "Just like you. And that little one. She's got both your fire." The three of them were ushered into Claire's room. Machines beeped quietly, tracking the slow, steady return of life. Claire lay pale but alive, her eyes fluttering open as Emily scrambled onto the bed, burying herself in her mother's embrace. Maxwell stood at the foot of the bed, every wall inside him crumbling. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice thick. "I should have protected you both. I should have been there." Claire reached out, fingers brushing his cheek, and for the first time in years, Maxwell let himself cry. The tears came hard, shuddering, as Emily clung to both her parents, her small voice breaking the silence. "We're together now. That's what matters." Perez lingered in the doorway, watching the fractured family knit itself back together. The chaos outside, the police, the press, the endless questions, could wait. For now, inside this room, there was only the quiet thrum of hope, the fierce warmth of three hands intertwined, and the unspoken promise that no matter what darkness lingered beyond the door, they would face it together. But as dawn crept across the city, and the world began to stir, Maxwell knew that Victor's web stretched far and deep. The immediate threat was gone, but the past had left scars, and secrets still waited in the shadows, hungry for the light. In the hush before sunrise, Maxwell bent close to Claire and Emily, whispering the words he had never dared until now. "I love you. Both of you. I'm not running anymore." Claire smiled through her pain, and Emily held them tighter, the family finally, if only for a fragile moment, whole. But outside, beyond the glass and stone, someone watched from a hospital parking lot, phone pressed to their ear. And as Maxwell looked out at the new day, he had no idea another storm was gathering. One final trial that would demand every ounce of courage he had left. Morning sunlight crept into the hospital room, gilding Claire's hair as she slept, Emily curled protectively beside her. Maxwell stood at the window, eyes raw but alert, watching the city come to life below. It felt unreal, this peace, this pause, after a night when everything could have been lost. The steady beeps of the heart monitor, the soft rustle of Emily's breathing, were a lullaby he hadn't realized he craved. For a moment, Maxwell allowed himself to believe the worst was over. But as the city brightened, Detective Perez entered, her expression grave. She closed the door quietly, glancing from Claire to Maxwell. "Victor's been moved to a federal holding facility," she murmured. "But we found something in his effects, a phone, hidden under a false panel in his briefcase. It was still on. There's a call log. Someone was giving him orders, Max. He wasn't the architect. He was a pawn." Maxwell's fists clenched. "Who?" Perez shook her head, her voice tight. "Numbers encrypted. Overseas. Could be anyone, a rival, an enemy from years back. Someone with resources, reach. Victor never would have gone this far on his own." Maxwell's mind whirled. He had faced betrayal, violence, and loss, but this shadow behind Victor, this faceless hand, was something deeper. Something that wouldn't let them go. Claire stirred, waking to the hush. She looked at Perez, then at Maxwell. "What's wrong?" Maxwell knelt by the bed, taking her hand. "Victor wasn't working alone. There's someone else. But I won't let them near you. I swear it." Claire squeezed his hand. "You're not alone, Max. You never were. Not really. We'll face it together." Emily blinked awake, rubbing her eyes. She crawled into Maxwell's lap, her voice small but steady. Are we safe now? He kissed the top of her head. We're together. That's what matters. Perez lingered, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. We'll post extra security. But you should lay low. Let the world think you're gone for a while. We'll track down whoever was behind this, no matter how long it takes. Maxwell nodded. He looked at Claire, at Emily, at the battered rabbit still clutched in his daughter's arms. Something inside him hardened and healed at the same time. The days blurred together, hospital halls giving way to a quiet safe house by the sea. The world believed Maxwell's heart had vanished, retired, perhaps broken by the violence he'd endured. But within those sunlit rooms, something new took root, a family, tentatively whole, fiercely determined to hold on to each other. Maxwell taught Emily to ride a bike along the dunes, Claire's laughter ringing across the sand. He learned to cook breakfast, to brush Emily's curls, to read bedtime stories until her eyelids fluttered shut. There were nights when fear crept in, when shadows gathered at the windows. But Maxwell never let go of the hands that anchored him. Every day, he checked the news for word of the unseen enemy. Every night, he made the same silent vow. No one would ever threaten his family again. One golden afternoon, as the three of them walked along the shore, Emily squeezed her father's hand. Will we ever go back home? Maxwell knelt in the sand, pulling her close. We'll make a new home. Together. No matter where we are. Claire knelt beside them, her arm wrapping around both. As long as we have each other, we're home. For the first time in his life, Maxwell understood what it meant to be truly rich. Not in money, not in power, but in love, in forgiveness, in the second chance that only family can give. And as the sun set beyond the waves, Maxwell's heart looked at his daughter, her smile bright as hope itself, and knew that whatever waited in the shadows, they would face it, together. No longer just a billionaire in an empty office. Now, a father. A partner. A man who, at last, had found his true fortune.